Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's Board of Appeals hearing. Before we begin, let me introduce some members of town government that act as advisors to this board. To my left is David Flynn, Assistant Planning Director in the Planning Department. To his left is Blaise Donato, Planner in the Planning Department. And to his left is Alex Wallach, a planner in the Planning Department. Now let me tell you why you're here tonight. New York State statute requires that any town that adopts zoning must also have a Board of Appeals to act as a relief valve so that those persons aggrieved by strict application of the zoning ordinance can seek relief without the expense of going to court. Town board can give Board of Appeals additional powers such as special exception approvals, site plan approvals, etc. In Smithtown, the town board has given this board authority regarding certificate of existing use and some special exception uses. The most common kind of application before the board are area variances. Area variances deal with dimensions such as lot area, frontage, height, setback, and parking spaces. New York State statute mandates the board must consider the following criteria in area variances. When you come to the podium to present your application, you need to address these 5 areas. They're posted here for you. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created. Number 2, whether the applicant has other feasible alternatives. Number 3, whether the variance is substantial. And number 4, whether an adverse impact on the environment will be created. Number 5, whether the alleged difficulty is self-created. The statute requires the board to balance the interests of the applicant and those of the neighborhood or community. The statute further requires that the board shall grant the minimum variance it shall deem necessary and adequate, and at the same time preserve and protect the character of the neighborhood and the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The board has the power to impose reasonable conditions for granting variances. Special exception applications are different than area variances. When we have a special exception application before us, I will explain the different criteria. Regarding procedure, cases will be called in order that they are advertised. When your case is called, please come forward and submit your affidavits and mailing receipts to, who's taking the receipts? Mr. Donato. All right. And then you will be sworn in the podium and given the opportunity to explain to the board why you need the variance. After the applicant is done speaking, all interested parties will be given one opportunity and only one opportunity to be heard. So please, organize your thoughts, keep your remarks factual that are related to the case. Then I will ask the applicant to come back to the podium to answer your concerns. The board will then close the cases and reserve decision. After all the hearings are closed, the board will review the cases and decide some of them. Others will be reviewed at a later date. There are 3 ways to find out the results of the case. Number 1, you can wait until after the public hearing, but there's no guarantee that the board will act in your case tonight. Number 2, you can call the planning department tomorrow afternoon. Number 3, applicants can wait and be notified by mail. And to my left is Mr. John Zola, who is the town attorney. Okay. All right, do you want to do the first case for tonight, please?
The first case is 16,907. Peter Caputo, 12 Shetland Lane, St. James. Location west side of Shetland Lane, west of Marchant Drive, north, St. James. Property zoned R10. Variance to reduce minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 3 feet, and total side yards from 28 feet to 17 feet for an existing 86 square foot shed.
Good evening. May I have your name, please?
Peter Caputo,
And your address, Peter.
12 Shetland Lane, St. James, New York, 11780.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do?
Thank you. You want to tell us why you're here, please?
Sure. I'm applying for a variance to reduce my minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 3 feet and total side yards from 28 feet to 17 feet for an existing shed.
Okay.
The side yard reduction does not have any negative effect of sight lines due to the placement of the accessory structure from either adjacent properties or the neighborhood due to surrounding fences and landscaping around my property. The request to reduce the side yard requirement has no impact on access ways, surrounding ground topography, or storm water drainage. There are no environmental impacts to reducing the side yard space as the accessory structure has no noise or lighting. The accessory structure has no permanent foundation, but due to an aggressive slope in my rear yard of approximately 1:2, the shed cannot be relocated without major excavation of the entire rear yard, which will have a detrimental effect on the adjacent properties. Due to the rear yard restrictions, the side yard was the most appropriate place to construct the shed. Please consider my argument, and thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay. Planning?
Nothing, thank you, Madam Chair.
Gentlemen? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Do you ask if anyone to speak for or
Yeah.
against?
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
It's regularly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay, the second case is 16,908 Bonnie Allen, 42 Fulton Avenue, Smithtown, New York. Location, east side of Fulton Avenue, 155 feet south of Lexington Avenue, Smithtown. Property zoned R10. Variance to reduce minimum rear yard setback from 6 feet to 2 feet for an existing 823 square foot deck and existing 69 square foot shed.
May I have your name, please?
Yes, Bonnie Allen,
And your address?
42 Fulton Avenue, Smithtown.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you like this gentleman to speak for you?
I do.
Okay.
Good evening. Doug Hines, Design Development Group, 23 Skylark Lane, Stony Brook, for the applicant.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. Ms. Allen is requesting two not substantial variances to maintain an existing wooden deck at the rear of her property, barely visible from the street. Only goes up to a height of 1 foot at the lower section and 18 inches at the higher section. I've handed up to the board several photographs of the deck, which demonstrate the modest nature of the structure, the landscaping, the fencing surrounding it, which isolates the structure and therefore does not present any substantial impact or adverse impact in the neighborhood. No environmental impact. The shape of the property as laid out on the subdivision map created some difficulties in finding adequate rear yard space for recreational use. The use is seasonal, and we would respectfully submit that the variance would not be inappropriate. As to the framed shed, although the location is within 2 feet of the rear property line, you can see from the photographs that it also is a modest, well-screened structure. We would repeat the same arguments as to the impact on the neighborhood. It's barely visible except from the side, left side of the house as you face the house, but the pictures show how well screened it is from the neighboring property. And although these hardships were self-created, Madam Chairwoman, we would respectfully submit that that alone would not be reason enough to deny them. And that is our application.
Planning?
I don't think there are any planning issues, thank you.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
It's regularly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
The next case is 16909 John Wong and Har Yuk, 12 Belford Lane, Smithtown, New York. Location, the west side of Belford Lane, 74 feet south of Norwalk Lane, Smithtown. Property zoned R10 district. Request variance to increase maximum height from 2.5 to 3 stories. Increase maximum gross floor area from 25% to 29% for a proposed addition.
May I have your name, please?
Hi, my name is John Wong.
And your address, John?
We live in 12 Belford Lane, Smithtown, New York.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, now would you like this gentleman to speak for you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask you, when you give your name, to spell your last name for the
Yes.
court stenographer. All right, may I have your name, please?
Gennaro Cozzolino, Cozzolino.
Okay. And your address?
2125 Deer Park Avenue, Deer Park, New York, 11729.
Okay, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Gentlemen, we're going to have to share, so you want to open this? All right? There's only two, so if you'd like to open this. Okay?
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. My name is Gennaro Cozzolino, agent for the homeowners, Mr. and Mrs. Wong, residing at 12 Belford Lane, also known as Section 96, Block 4, Lot 22, located in a residential R10 zone. Mr. and Mrs. Wong have lived in the neighborhood for many years and would like to stay and expand their home for the comfort and enjoyment of their growing family. We're requesting relief from the board to construct a 675 square foot addition. The addition is considered a third floor and requires a variance for number of stories because more than half of the lower level is above grade by 12 inches. The lower level consisting of a two-car garage and a mechanical room is therefore considered a floor. The lower level then being added to the gross floor area calculations, we also require variance for FAR, requesting to build at 28.6% from permitted 25%, a difference of 3.6%. The proposed addition will comply with all other zoning requirements for front yard, side yards, and rear yard setbacks. We researched the surrounding area and found that there are several homes with similar additions. I have pictures to submit to the board.
Okay, first of all, are all these pictures labeled?
Yes.
When you took the pictures and who took them and everything? Okay. And the other, go ahead back and I'll ask you.
Yep.
Okay.
Property cards are also attached.
Okay. Do you know if all these cases have variances?
Not all,
Not all.
but have similar extensions that were considered second floors.
But the ones you're handing me, you don't know if they have
There
variances?
was one that had a variance.
One that did.
Um,
Okay. All right, why don't you continue then?
We feel that the variance we're asking for are not substantial. The proposed additions will have no environmental impact to the area and will not affect the adjacent properties whatsoever. We assure the board that the proposed work will fit in with the character and nature of the neighborhood. We thank you for the time in this matter. On behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Wong and their family, we respectfully request a favorable decision for this variance.
Planning?
No comments, Madam Chair.
Gentlemen? Everybody, all right? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. Motion carried. Moved and thank you.
Okay?
Yeah.
The next case is 16910, Maurizio Bertolotti, 95 Sherrill Crescent, Smithtown, New York. Location, north side of Sherrill Crescent, 446 feet east of Meyer Lane, Smithtown. property zoned R15. Request, variance to reduce minimum rear yard setback from 60 feet to 58 feet for a proposed 240 square foot first floor addition.
I don't think this is a power, I don't think this is a power of attorney.
I'm sorry?
You have a power of attorney there?
Well, they have a scheduling conflict for their daughter's recital tonight. They asked me to represent them.
Mm-mm.
Edward Koenig, architect, 122 Sequams Lane Center,
He only
West
takes
Islip, New
the
York.
Bluebird? Which one does he take?
He only takes the I mean, if this person represents that he's doing this on the behalf of the signed document, I don't see why he wouldn't. Doesn't make him come back. What's the nature of the application?
Just an area variance.
So, no, it's pretty straightforward. Can rather make him come back, I think.
I'd rather let it go than let him present myself.
You gotta let him present it, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What would you like me to do?
Madam Chairwoman, if I could, this is not a typical power of attorney, and, but understand the nature of the application is for an area variance, and I think as long as this is Mr. Koenig,
Yes,
and you're acting here tonight on behalf of the Berlottis,
yes,
and you represent to this board that you have the authority based upon this document that was presented, signed, and notarized by the Berlottis?
yes.
Okay. I would recommend the board, based upon representations by Mr. Koenig and it's affidavit, it's signed and notarized. I think you could go forward on the hearing with this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let me have your name and address, and spell your last name for the
Sure.
board. Go ahead.
Edward Koenig, Koenig, 122 Sequams Lane Center, West Islip, New York.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. My clients, the Bertolottis, are requesting permission to erect a one-story rear addition for a kitchen addition and renovation. The relaxation is for 1.5 feet, or generally for 2 feet for the rear addition, from the 60 required to 58 feet. Two bordering properties to the rear of the house have approximate rear setbacks of 55.9 and 54 feet for existing rear structures. Based on precedents in the neighborhood and also the minor character of the request, we're hoping that you will approve this variance.
Planning?
No comments, thank you.
Gentlemen?
No.
All right? Are you okay? Okay.
Thank
Thank you so much. Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing and I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Rarely moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Okay, the next case is 16911 Chase Villafana, excuse me, 66 Elm Avenue, Smithtown, New York. Location, west side of Elm Avenue, 100 feet south of Linden Place, Smithtown. Property zoned R10. Request, variance to permit environmentally sensitive land, that is depth to groundwater less than 10 feet, to be altered to increase the maximum permitted paving in the front yard from 25% to 72%, reduce the front yard setback from 40 feet to 8 feet, 13 feet existing, for an existing 60 square foot portico.
Are you the applicant?
I am not here for the applicant. I'm American Tourist. I'm the architect for the
Who's the
applicant.
applicant?
That's me.
I need
Me.
the applicant first, please. May
How
I
are
have
you?
your name and address, please?
Chase Villafana, 66 Elm Avenue, Smithtown, New York.
Okay. Raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. Now, would you like this gentleman to speak for you?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Good
All right.
evening, board members. My name is Mario Conteros. I'm a real estate registered architect.
All right, wait a minute. You got to go a little bit
Sure.
slower and spell your last name, please.
Canteros. Mario is the first name. I'm here representing my client,
And your address?
129 Elm Street, New Rochelle, New York, 10805.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Self-stating, I'm here on behalf of Mr. Chase Villafana in regards to the two variances that are being sought. One of them is for the front entrance portico that was erected, and also for the increase of the surface pavement area of 71.5%, more than that what is allowed. I believe we submitted some pictures of the recently renovated house showing the front portico, which is an open portico. At the time, my client was renovating his house, doing some upgrade, and
Go ahead, I'll look on yours.
during that time, it was noticed that a covered walkway or a covering was needed over the entrance. So a open portico was erected that matches the elements of the structure that was being renovated. And at the time, he didn't know that there was a requirement for a setback. We looked through the records, and it was correct that we are within the required setback. I believe it's 40 feet. The house itself already is more than 40 feet. It's a non-conforming existing structure. So that is one of the variances we're requesting for that portico to stay there, as shown. The second variance is in regards to the driveway. You can see one of the pictures on the left side where, again, the existing driveway was in a bit of disrepair, and he wanted to renovate it, so he went ahead and cleaned that up and put in some cobblestone on the edges and increased the area for parking to keep the cars off the street. If anything, that was one of his ideas that he had. Again, he didn't have the information in front of him that there was a limit on the maximum surface paved area for that zone and actually for that structure, for that lot. So we did submit all the photos that we could gather of the new construction, the portico, and previously. I also, if I may, I have a picture here. Move it up. I don't know if you're able to see it. But it's just a simple Google Earth map, and you can see where his residence is in the circle. I can pass it around. And we walked around the neighborhood, and one of the things we did is we looked at the portico that's there. Naturally, it's closer than is allowed, but we didn't see any kind of change in the, I would say, neighborhood character that goes around in that neighborhood. If anything, my client upgraded his home, and we believe that even though the portico is within the setback, I think that it enhances the neighborhood, I would guess, cost of all the relating homes. And if it was a detriment, it's one of the things that we have to show. If we had all these different front entrances with similar kind of entrances that have no portico and everyone had it nice and neat, but everyone has a little bit of everything if you walk around that neighborhood. And one of the other things that we looked at was, again, the driveways. Some of the neighbors have long driveways, some have short driveways. So in terms of the driveway, him, again, creating something that is not within the context of the neighborhood, again, I saw that as being just a different area, even though the increase in area is more than is allowed. But I saw some of the driveways that were more than that was allowed because it was existing, which is fine. I'm not debating that. It's just that they were not all uniform driveways. If you see 10 driveways, they're all exactly the same size. All of a sudden, you see this huge one or larger one, and then that rhythm continues again. I would say, okay, you're breaking up that neighborhood in terms of the existing driveways. I didn't see that evidence either there. So that led me to the whole argument that what he did to this home enhanced the neighborhood. And I don't see any, I guess, I don't see anything that will show me that keeping what he has already installed and erected in his home would do anything to the neighborhood. So I feel that I'm hopeful that the board will see, and I hope, and I'm going to assume that the board did walk around the neighborhood and looked at this, and hopefully they can come to the same conclusion that my client's intent during the whole process of installing the portico and repairing the driveway was in the best intent for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Planning?
I have two comments that I think might be useful to the board. First is the request to increase the paved surface to 72%, I think is misleading. It's been a couple of weeks since I've looked at the file, but my recollection is I think it overstates the severity of the request. I'm not sure how the calculation was done. It perhaps includes the roof, the portion of the roof of the house that's closer to the street than the setback. So I don't think it's as substantial as advertised. The second thing is the environmentally sensitive land variances, I don't think are something that should be taken lightly. However, in this situation, what's actually happening here has very little effect on the groundwater. The purpose of the regulation in the zoning ordinance that prohibits the alteration of environmentally sensitive lands is to do one of three things: either to reduce groundwater flooding, to protect the groundwater from pollution, or to make sure that someone's septic system or basement is working the way it should be. In this situation, no one's increasing the population density on the property. They're not increasing the wastewater generation. They're not digging something that is going down into the groundwater. And as a matter of fact, I think this is at the very edge of the high groundwater area. This isn't like a situation where the groundwater is 2 or 3 feet or 6 inches below the surface. I think the groundwater on this property is pretty close to 10 feet down, as I recall anyway. And based on those reasons, I think that the board could be confident that if it wanted to grant a variance here, it's not setting a precedent because the circumstances are unique. Also, with respect to the driveway and the setback, if you notice the shape of the property, I believe this has to qualify as
Unique?
yeah, I was going to say, sort of as a joke, as one of the most unique, as though uniqueness is something that you can be most or less of. But yes, I would say the property is unique.
Okay. Gentlemen? Mr. Tansey? Ben? Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Come up, please. Okay. May I have your name, please?
Anthony Campana,
Spell your last name, please,
Campana,
and your address.
22 Linden Place, Smithtown.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Are you going to speak?
No, I'm just supposed to support.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have no problems with the front of the house. It's the driveway. I have problems is that the pitch, my house is behind his, so all the rainwater comes off of it could come to my house in the backyard where the garage is. That's the only grief. I mean, I know the driveway is nice and everything, but the pitch of it, the way it is, everything's going to roll to the back, and my house is the lowest. The backyard is the
let
lowest.
me ask you a question. He's not changing anything.
No, I know he's not changing, but I'm still, right now, I see problems, water coming underneath my fence.
Oh, you do now?
Yes, I do now, and I don't want it to get any, worse than what it was. It was never there before the thing was changed, so that's, I know it's just started.
Okay. Okay.
And that's about, everything else I have no problems. I just worried about the water flooding, because I did have problems with water constantly coming, but I fixed it. My driveway was lower, so I raised mine. Mine up, solved the problem. Now I'm getting, I think because of his pitch, the house the way it is, mine's lowest, my backyard to the garage. Is the lowest part of the property from his street down. And I know the water will eventually run, when we get nice heavy rains, will run down into the back of the, to where the garage is.
So your house is adjacent to the,
Yes, my house
driveway?
is right in the, my garage is sitting right in the back of where his, butts up against his house.
the back corner of his
Yeah.
driveway?
He's got the L, I'm straight in. I go straight, he's got the L going to the back.
Okay, thank you. I'll give you a chance to come back up if you want to answer any of his concerns. Yes, you may.
I'm sorry. One of the comments that I heard was about a garage, and I'm looking at the site plan. I don't see any garage located in this property, in the drawing that we submitted, A101, to the board. And the only part that I can see closest to his property is the main house, the main roof that is about 2 stories up in the drawing that we submitted. And that is the original house that is there. So if anything, he repaired his home, the roof, but he didn't alter or add any additional impervious surface for any watershed to be going down towards the back. Whatever is there is from the original house, as you can see.
On the survey that you submitted, there shows a structure about 15 feet to the south of the property line, which would be just
May I?
adjacent. Yeah.
And this is his property.
Yeah, you cannot speak. You can take this back with you if you need to, but you need to speak on the mic.
Again, the pitch of that driveway literally is towards the front of the property, towards the road. Nothing was increased or pitched back to that side, as I recall.
One of the conditions we may put on it is that all the drainage, as per town code, needs to be confined to the property. So
Correct.
we may put a condition that it has to be reviewed by the engineering department so that we can be sure of that.
We have no problem with that. We can have a meeting with the town engineer at the site and, work out that. We don't see an issue with that at all.
Okay.
If I may just go ahead. The actual driveway is actually pitching to the left of the property, not pitching back of the property. In fact, if you look in the pictures, there's Belgian blocks that go completely around the driveway, and the Belgian blocks actually prevent the water from going to the back of the property. The water is intended to go to the left of the property so that the water is let out onto my property to the left side. Okay. In addition, there's also weep holes that the driveway contractor installed so that the water could find its way out of the driveway to the left side of the driveway. There's absolutely no water permeating to the rear of the driveway, nor does the driveway pitch to the rear.
That's understandable, but just to be sure that your neighbors
Oh,
are
yeah,
protected, we would just put a condition on
Okay.
it, and if that's the case, it's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks.
Just let me tell you that the environmental department has not issued a recommendation, so there will be no decision tonight. All right? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
It's regularly moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
The next case is number 16,912, Linda Bennett, or Bennett, I'm not sure which. 11 Wexford Court, St. James, New York. Location, east side of Wexford Court, 563 feet east of Northern Boulevard, St. James. Property zoned R21. Request, variance to reduce minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 44 feet for a proposed 336 square foot covered deck.
And your name, please.
Linda Bennett,
And your address, Linda?
11 Wexford Court, St. James, New York, 11780.
Good. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
I am seeking a variance for 6 feet into a 50-foot setback for a porch on the front of the house that's 6 feet wide, 42 inches long, 336 square feet, and it will have a roof over it. The proposed change is not an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to the nearby properties. Because the house was built in the 1960s on the setback line, there's no way to add the porch without going into the setback. The variance request is not substantial. The proposed variance will not have an adverse impact on the environmental conditions in the neighborhood, and the difficulty was not self-created.
Okay. Because it's not existing, right? It's not existing.
No, it hasn't been built yet.
Okay, thank you. Planning?
No comments, thanks.
Gentlemen. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
It's regularly moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
The next case is 16,913, Louis Variali, 56 Verdi Street, Smithtown, New York. Location, south side of Verdi Street, 308 feet east of St. Nicholas Avenue, Smithtown. Property zoned R10. Request, variance to reduce minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 6 feet and total side yard from 28 feet to 18 feet for an existing 224 square foot shed with 32 square foot roof over.
May I have your name, please?
Louis Variali,
And your address, Louis?
56 Verdi Street, Smithtown, New York.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Want to tell us why you're here, please?
I had an old shed that I replaced with a newer structure approximately 15 years ago, and I put it in the same place, not realizing that it was too close to that property line. There's a similar shed across the street which had a variance granted approximately 15 years ago, and is to the neighbor of my east, also has a shed which a variance was granted approximately 18 years ago. So, I have, no impact on anybody. The neighbor to the east of me doesn't really use that backyard very much. It's just kind of left in a natural state, and I don't feel it's an issue to any of the neighbors.
We did, we do visit the sites.
Yes.
So we were there. Now, there's nothing on that other side. Is that town property? On the other side where the shed is? What?
There is a small 3 or 4 foot piece of property that's in there that I guess Mr. Flynn, what's it called?
A gore.
A gore.
Gore.
Yeah, I guess that the engineering error left that gore of 4 or so feet there. That it's like a no man's land, so it's even more of a buffer, if you'd like to say that.
Okay. Good. Planning?
No comments, thanks.
Gentlemen. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Really moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next case is 16,914, Janet Donnelly, 340 6th Avenue, St. James, New York. Location, west side of 6th Avenue, 109 feet south of 1st Avenue, St. James. Property zoned R10. Request, Variance to reduce minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 3 feet and total side yards from 28 feet to 6 feet existing for proposed additions. Increase floor area ratio from 25% to 30%.
May I have your name, please?
Janet Donnelly,
And your address, Janet?
340 6th Avenue, St. James, New York, 11780.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Would you like this gentleman to speak for you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay. My name's Robert O'Shea. I'm an architect with an office at 821 West Jericho Turnpike in Smithtown.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay. The existing house is a two-story building that is located 3.9 feet from a north property line. There is also a detached garage, which is located 3.4 feet from the opposite south property line. Because of these non-conforming side yards, the variance request as advertised sounds a lot more substantial than it actually is. I'd like to explain. The garage addition complies with all setback and height requirements, but because there's an existing nonconformity, we need a variance in order to expand it. We are also proposing additions to the house that'll provide some much-needed living space and bedrooms for a family of 6. These additions will be in line with the existing side walls of the house so as not to decrease the non-conforming side yard situation. The aggregate side yard setbacks that we're proposing for the house itself is 28.2 feet. So the aggregate side yard actually does comply with respect to the house itself. While we realize there is a non-conforming north side yard, but again, we're not getting any closer to the property line than that established non-conforming side yard. What I was saying about the advertising of the variance, it states that we're proposing a 6-foot aggregate side yard. I just wanted to make it very clear that that was the south side yard of a detached structure being added to the north side yard of the house itself. So again, the aggregate side yard for the primary building, the aggregate side yards comply with the zoning. So we have 28.2 feet, where 28 is the requirement. Incidentally, the 6-foot variant, the number of aggregate side yard is actually 7.4. I think the board just puts those numbers out there for a little wiggle room. On the drawings that I submitted with the application, I showed the outline of the existing house on a front elevation that I prepared. If you look at the drawing, and I brought one along with me, you can see in the upper left hand of this sheet, I had outlined the profile of the existing house, and on this example that I'm holding up, I have colored in yellow the portions of the house that will be outside of the existing profile of the house. So you can see that we're not adding that much to the bulk of the house as viewed from the street. The ridge of the proposed ridge is 3 feet higher than the ridge that currently exists, and the gutter line to the two sides of the building is 8 inches above the gutter line that exists on the dormers on the sides of the building. So again, we're not increasing the overall height of this building to any great degree. The planned project also requires a variance to permit a floor area ratio of 30%, where 25% is the permitted maximum. While we were designing this project, I was very careful to keep the FAR of the house itself under the 25% number. The first and second floor areas, when you put them together, come to a total of 2,608 square feet, which translates to 23.94%. Attic space with a headroom greater than 6 foot 8 inches is considered as part of the gross floor area of a residence. When I drew a section on this drawing, which was not included on the drawings that you have that I submitted with the application, which indicates the headroom in the attic from the floor of the attic to the structurally required collar ties is only 5 feet. So it is my contention that that no attic space at all should be included in this sum. If for some reason it's determined by the town that that does need to be included, the total which would be adding for attic space is 163 square feet, which would raise the total for the building itself to 2771, which would translate to 25.44%, just slightly over the limit. There is, however, the detached garage, which we're proposing to expand somewhat, which when you add the 438 square feet of that building, it would bring our total to 29.47%. This is a very old section of St. James, and there's many non-conforming lots and buildings throughout the neighborhood. Specifically, the house immediately to the south. I have an overall site plan here. Here's the subject parcel. The house immediately to the south has a non-conforming side yard of 6 feet, and the house south of that has a 5-foot side yard and a 27-foot aggregate side yard. Now, in a variance that was granted in case number 13050 on that last house that I was discussing, which is 2 houses south of the subject parcel, the variance is granted to permit a 1,046 square foot second floor addition. This house also has a similarly placed driveway, garage, as you can see, which is very similar to the subject parcel. And I'd like to point out that neither the building department or the Board of Appeals seem to consider this relevant when determining the aggregate side yards, since it was not mentioned in the decision. It calls for an aggregate side yard, permitting an aggregate side yard of 27 feet, where if the same standard was applied that we are making an appeal of, they would certainly have a much lesser aggregate side yard. They'd probably be dealing with about 8 feet. Okay. Also, the house across the street from there at 333 6th Avenue was granted a variance in case number 13811 to permit the construction of a new 2-story house with an 8-foot minimum side yard and a 24-foot aggregate side yard. I have copies of those board decisions that I could submit to you.
Thank you so much.
We do not feel that, since the house is not out of character with the neighborhood in general, we do not feel that this would produce an impact on adjacent properties. Again, it's not substantial, that these types of things do exist here and there around the neighborhood, and especially immediately south and across the street. We cannot really achieve this benefit with by any other means, since any addition to this house would require these same variances one way or another. The property is not located in any of the environmentally sensitive areas as mapped by the town, so it will not create any environmental issues. And it is certainly not a self-created hardship, since we have not done any of this planned construction as of yet. I also have letters from 3 neighboring property owners. I'll read one, and the other 2 are identical. Elizabeth O'Brien, residing at 344 6th Avenue, being a resident of St. James and an owner of property within 200 feet of 340 6th Avenue, have seen and understand the plans for the construction for which a zoning variance is being sought, and hereby encourage the board to vote in favor of the application. That was from the owner of 344 6th Avenue, being the most effective property owner involved in this application, immediately to the north, and the 2 properties immediately across the street at 341 and 335 6th Avenue. I'd like to submit these to the board as well.
Thank you.
all that being said, we feel that since this will fit in with the character of the community, an approval of this application will have no ill effect on the public health, safety, welfare, or property values in the neighborhood. And we would ask the board to vote in favor of our application, and if anyone has questions, I'll do my best to answer them for you.
Is he saying that the attic, we counted the attic and it was only 5 feet? Is that the attic?
I didn't catch that.
Is the attic 5 feet in height?
There are structurally required elements that you need to hold the roof together, which at the prescribed height that you install them would leave a 5-foot headroom in the attic. So it is my understanding that that would constitute the headroom in the attic, and therefore we wouldn't have to include that. However, if the board, I couldn't get an actual definition from anyone as to what is or isn't, but if we just go to the underside of rafters and ignore these collar beams that I'm talking about, that would leave a 163 square foot area in the attic that meets that 6'8". I just threw that in for the point of clarification. If the town's definition of what constitutes attic space of 6'8" headroom differs than mine or a reading of any building code statute that I'm aware of.
Is this the set that you submitted to the building department?
I'm sorry?
Is this the set of plans you submitted to the building department?
Yes, it is, with the exception of the section that I drew on this front cover, that I pointed that out and illustrated it to the board this evening.
Would the denial reflect the plans as they were submitted, I guess?
Yes, yeah.
So they're calculating at 30%, so I think that's the way we would view it.
Okay, well, then I just wanted to put that out there as my interpretation of a code analysis and something, the actual way that the town's ordinance reads would support my definition, my interpretation of
Them, but
this.
it's probably better to leave it at 30%.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why I gave you the 3 breakdowns of how these numbers were arrived at.
Right. Again, we don't have a recommendation from the environmental department, so I think they're waiting for the minutes. All right?
Okay.
So there'll be no decision tonight? Okay. Mr. Flynn, anything else that you would like to?
No, thank you.
Okay. Gentlemen, anything else?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Billy moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
The next case is 16915 J. Goldberg, 68 Sherrill Crescent, Smithtown, New York. Location, east side of Sherrill Crescent, 217 feet west of Sandy Drive, Smithtown. Property zoned R15. Variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 25 feet to 22 feet for a proposed 75 square foot first floor addition and 518 square foot garage addition to increase maximum front yard paving from 25% to 29%.
Okay, may I have your name, please?
Jay Goldberg,
And your address, Jay?
68 Cheryl Crescent, Smithtown, New York.
Okay. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Who's speaking
I'm
here?
going to have Mancini Architecture speak on my
Okay.
behalf, but I just wanted to let you know what the purpose of the project was, which is my father-in-law lost his wife in June last year and then subsequently got displaced from Storm Sandy and lost his home, and we took him in. So this is he's 82 years old, and this is to give him a living space on the first floor so he won't have to go up and down the stairs.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, Mark?
I'm Mark Mancini, architect, Town of Smithtown, 222 Middle Country Road.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
As Mr. Goldberg said, his father-in-law recently lost his home to Hurricane Sandy. And the good news is he moved in, is enjoying life with the grandchildren and his family. What we're doing on this is we're going to take the garage and convert it over to living space and then build a new garage on the other side of the house. In doing so, we're extending the garage out just a slight bit. My client has the privilege of being in the inside of the crescent on Sherrill Crescent. So the property has a nice curve to it. It comes, it reduces the front yard setback on both sides of the house on the inside of the curve. We are taking the new garage and we're going to put a driveway to it. Obviously with the crescent shape, we don't want any cars out on the road, so we're extending the driveway a slight bit and having the area so that we can park cars on both sides. That's about it. It's pretty straightforward, just a garage conversion and a garage.
That driveway on the other side here, is that staying?
We'd like it to stay, and that's part of that calculation that you see, the 29%. Because of the fact that they are on that curve, I really do not want to have cars parked out on the road or the street, so I want to make it, the ability to park on both sides.
Okay. Planning?
Question for Mr. Mancini. The front yard setback is normally 45 feet in this zone. Am I mistaken, or do I recall looking this up about a month or two ago, that the planning board had granted a variance at the time of final plat approval, allowing the house to be only 25 feet from the front?
Well, that's true, right? I'll bring my colleague up, Pong.
Yeah,
I have to swear you in, so give me your name.
Pong Moy, M-U-I.
And your address?
222 Middle Country Road,
Okay.
Smithtown.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
There is a modified map on this where that setback is actually 20, I think it is 25 feet. It is a modified map. When I went to the building department, they couldn't find it on a file, so I went to the planning department and they dug it up, and I gave it back to the building department. They gave me the variance based on that 25-foot modified map.
Thank you. I couldn't remember if we discussed it or was only in a dream.
Yeah, we did discuss it, and then we brought it back and amended the denial. You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions? Gentlemen? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
Thanks. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second?
Ready, moved, and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried.
Case 16916, Michael Briscoe, 80 Alder Drive, Kings Park, New York. Location west side of Alder Drive, 100 feet south of Tulip Road, Kings Park. Property zoned R10. Request, variance to increase maximum gross area from 25% to 45%, parenthesis, 27% if no high groundwater, close parenthesis. Reduce minimum side yard setback from 12 feet to 5 feet for a proposed garage and second floor addition. Reduce minimum front yard setback from 25 feet to 20 feet for a proposed roof over porch, which I presume is just a porch, but okay. Reduce rear and side yard setbacks from 6 feet to 5 feet for existing shed. Increase maximum front yard paving from 25% to 60%. To allow a retaining wall plus fence on top to be over 6 feet to 9 feet. Reduce minimum setback of a 33-inch retaining wall to the property line from 3 feet to 0 feet. Reduce the minimum setback of a 6-foot fence to a 33-inch retaining wall from 33 inches to 0 feet.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. Mr. Briscoe's remodeling of this house, if you will, was mostly generated by the hurricane. So he looked at this project and tried his best, along with his architect, to come up with a good design for the area. Now, Alda Drive, or Alda Drive, is about 1,200 feet from the water. And because it is, we have another rule that we have to follow, or legislation, and that's the LWRP. And in pursuance of the LWRP and the enforcement of certain of its regulations, Mr. Flynn sent me a letter, David Flynn, on April 30th, 2013, and made certain suggestions. First of all, he talks about the policy, and we won't go into what the policy is, because frankly, I don't really know what their policy was when they enacted this ordinance. But in any event, we took note of Mr. Flynn's letter, and in taking note of his letter, we took, or we made use of suggestions that he made in the letter. I hope you have a copy of it. David, do they have it?
I don't have it.
Okay, so I'm going to have to give you my copy. Not the Board of Zoning Appeals, okay. Anyway, we went through Mr. Briscoe's, or the letter from David Flynn, and what Mr. Briscoe decided to do was follow David Flynn's recommendations, which we have done, which lessens our application and follows pretty much what Mr. Flynn suggested. And I have new plans that reflect that, which I'd like to submit to the board. Now, understand, this is less than what we're requesting, so the board certainly has the power to grant this.
All right, so these plans are not, right? This is not what we're looking at?
My understanding is they're revising the plans to make it a less substantial request.
So we're not, look, these are not the
Right.
ones.
My recollection is I think I'd recommended reducing the width of the garage a foot
Yes.
and something off the second floor a foot or two. I apologize, I don't remember exactly what it was.
All right, so let's, you're going to have to go back and use that mic so we have it on the record. These are the new ones?
Yeah. There are 4 sets of plans that you have, and we have more if you'd like more. Let's see.
Gentlemen, you want to share that? Can you pass one to Mr. Flynn?
We would eliminate the shed and reduce the addition by 53 square feet, and, or reduce the addition by 246 square feet. And again, we followed Mr. Flynn's recommendation, so we are consistent with the LWRP as best we can. Again, this product or this development was based upon the fact that we had to do something to fix the house. So we believe that we improved the house. I'm submitting the letter, so you have a copy. We believe that this would not affect or make an effect of an undesirable change in the character of the area. We haven't done anything yet. We're waiting for this board's approval. Whether the benefit sought could be accomplished by some other method. I guess we could make the house even smaller, but what we've done now seems to be consistent with the LWRP. It is in San Remo, and we know that there are certain drainage issues that we have to take care of, but as has happened earlier tonight, we know that we have to get approvals from town departments, most specifically the engineering department. whether the proposed variances will have an adverse effect on the environment. It's a house. The house was there. It didn't change. The high groundwater really doesn't seem to be a problem other than in very, very heavy rains. And there is already a whole system, a sump system in the house to deal with that. Whether the difficulty was self-created, obviously not. We haven't started anything yet. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. We have, again, tried to comply with the planning department's recommendations pursuant to the LWRP. So I think this board has good, sound reasoning if they were to grant this variance. If the board has any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them, and Mr. Briscoe is here.
Just a clarification. You're going on the garage from 5 feet to 6 feet.
I'm
and
sorry,
then,
I can't hear you.
On the garage, you're going from 5 foot to 6 feet.
Which would be in compliance.
We're going less.
On this one, you're asking for a 5-foot setback. On this one, you're asking for a 6-foot setback. Right.
Right, so there's essentially no variance required there.
Right.
And then you're removing
the
the
variance
shed.
from 12 feet to 6, right?
Just that one, not the 6 to
And
5.
you're removing the shed. So you don't, the variance
Yes.
for the shed is totally out.
Right.
Okay, that's all.
Okay, let me ask you a question. The LWRP, was it approved by the town board yet? LWRP?
No, no. I don't know if did you send it, David, yet?
No, we didn't.
All right,
I mean, I'll do what I can to get the department to send it tomorrow.
that's right. Now, just, can you tell me what the square footage of the house is?
Mr. Tramarko would know better than I.
How many square feet? How many square feet is the house? Come on up. Yeah. Finished.
The way it is now, or?
No, when you're done.
Madam Chair, the letter says, I believe, what the maximum square footage could be. Is that correct?
It's under, just under 3,000.
If I read the letter, I could find it
It's-
for you, I think.
It's, Mr. Briscoe indicates it's just under 3,000.
Okay, this says, according to the plan submitted, the application, the proposed gross floor of the structures on the property is 3,246 square feet. So I guess that's with the first floor, the second floor, the attached garage, and the shed.
I didn't follow it, all the words that you said.
First floor, the second floor, the attached garage, and the shed. That comes to 3,246 square feet.
Is that what was proposed before the letter was written, or is that revised?
No, that's before the letter.
3426?
Because we're eliminating the shed, we're taking 1 foot off the garage and...
Right.
The shed is 193.
But I think the letter says what the maximum can be, and I trust Mr. Tramarko that this is in compliance with that.
Can you see where it is? Right.
3246.
Yep, 3246. Okay, that's,
Minus 28.
so you should be in,
So it'll be 3,025 would be the new square footage. Does that sound right?
Can't hear you.
3,025?
Yeah, approximately.
and
yeah.
that's inconsistent.
I can't hear everything that was said, but Mr. Tramarko is representing that they reduced it based on the planning department's recommendation, and if they followed that, then it would be consistent.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. The only reason I'm asking, I guess you'll have to wait for the LWRP, and then I have to wait for the environmental department.
Okay.
Secret.
We'll do what we can tomorrow. You know, I mean, I don't want to like make a plea on television, but we're spread very thin, and we're doing everything we can,
Okay.
trying to balance, you know,
Mhm.
all different sorts of things. But we'll
Yeah.
make this a priority and try and get it out the door tomorrow.
Okay. You want this letter to go back in the into the
Yeah,
file?
you can put in the record. I'll get another copy.
Okay.
It's part of the record.
You want these back?
No, you can have the plans.
These are the new ones.
Well, let's keep the new ones. We have the rubber band. I put the new ones when the rubber band, you want to just sort these out later?
Would you mind if someone just wrote on that, the new one that just says revised or, let's say received in today's date? Just
Okay.
somewhere so we can make sure we have the right one.
Okay.
Maybe actually on their drawing, the architect has something that says revised.
Yeah, it has a revised date on it.
Yeah, right, okay, we'll find it that way.
We find that way, okay.
The changes are clouded out also.
Oh, okay.
All right. Okay. Gentlemen, do you have any more questions? Okay. All right. Is there anything else, Mr. DeMarco?
I have something to say about, I always have something
I know.
to say.
Go
but
ahead.
I'm going to ask the town attorney who's watching television now, are we watching ourselves, John, or?
No, I couldn't stand looking at us.
I would ask John, John Zolo to voice my, I don't know if you want to call it a complaint or the terrible situation that continues with this board, with the environmental department, where we have 5 members of a board, we have the planning department, we have multiple applicants waiting for the tail to wag the dog. And it's unfair, and it shouldn't be that way. And perhaps John Zolo could talk to the town board and tell them that it's holding up numerous applications for no reason. I see the planning department has 3 people here tonight, and we can't get one person from the environmental department. It's not right. So if you would do that, John, I'd appreciate it.
I'll take under advisement.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Okay. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second.
Regularly moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next case is 16,892.1, a rehearing, Giuseppe Abrancati, Emmanuel Realty, Inc., 1015 West Jericho Turnpike, Smithtown, New York. Location, south side of Hayrick Lane, 239 feet east of Oatley Lane, Comac. Property zoned R10. Request variance to reduce minimum rear yard setback from 50 feet to 48 feet. Increase maximum gross floor area from 25% to 34% for a proposed 2-story dwelling. Remove existing dwelling.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, my name is Vincent Tremarco. I represent the applicant. I've submitted affidavits of posting and mailing to Blaze Donadio. Approximately, I guess about 4 or 5 weeks ago, my client, who was then not my client, came in and made an application for a variance, and I guess the most important, or the one that concerned the board the most, was the floor area ratio. And if you remember the plans, it's a rather very, very nice house. It had certain attributes to it, and one of the things that, when he came to me, he said, well, you know, what can I do to see if we can get the board to look at this again and perhaps grant us a variance of the floor area ratio, but not what we requested the last time. As the board well knows, we submitted a letter. The board was kind enough to grant us a rehearing. Now, with this rehearing tonight, one of the main things that was done, and I have the architect here if you need further explanation, was they lowered the roof. In so doing, it reduces the floor area ratio. As you know, since we had this problem with attics and center halls and airspace, we've been plagued with making applications with respect to floor area ratio, which we never did 7, 8, 10 years ago, whenever it started. So a lot of this becomes an exercise in trying to explain to the board that many times, including this time, because of the roof line, it adds much square footage that really is not usable. So the architect went back to his drawing board and drew a house which basically requests this board to grant us to 34%. That was what we gave you in the letter before you decided to grant us a rehearing. It's a rather beautiful house, and with the lowering of the roof, the architect was able not to take away from the design, and at the same time make that attic smaller. Why we have to go through this with attics, it doesn't make sense. I think one of the reasons was years ago they thought that we would enter into that attic and make another room out of it, and there wouldn't be any permits and all of that kind of thing. Well, here this is not the case. This would never be the case the way the house is designed. So we asked the board for its favorable consideration. It certainly wouldn't be an undesirable change in the character of the area. And can the benefit be sought by some other method? Well, I guess we could make the house smaller, take out those bump outs on the side, but that's part of the character of the house, and that's the reason why we work so hard, well, not me, but the architect and the applicant, to reduce the floor area ratio and not take away from some of the essential designs of the house. Whether the requested area variance is substantial, it's not really when you look at the size of the plot and the way the house is set up. We think it's a benefit to the area. Will it have any adverse effect on the environment? No, it will not. It's just another house on a plot where there are houses all around it. And was the difficulty self-created? The house isn't built yet. We're asking this board to give us this variance so that my client can build his dream house. The board has any questions, as I said, not only do I have the applicant, but I have the architect, who you remember from the last time, made a presentation and explained everything a lot better than I'm doing tonight. So if you have any questions, he's here.
You have the square footage of the attic? Go
Mr.
ahead.
Trabarco?
Yes.
What was the original FAR presented at the last meeting?
36.
It was about 35.9.
Thank you.
36.
275 square feet.
275? And without that attic, you think it would be 33 or? Huh?
31.
Should be 31 without the attic? Okay. Planning?
No comments, thank you.
Gentlemen, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Gurju, anything?
No.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here that would like to be heard on this application? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved. Second?
Really moved and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. That concludes our hearings for tonight. Thank you so much.